This next session, yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. This one had me under the covers with my flash on, but it scared me so good I could chill less. Welcome to NSD, your safe space for chaotic lore, messy stories, and horror comics that'll how you running your ass upstairs from that imaginary monster at night, cause I know I do. So let's sit in on this next session. Our next patient sits down with Melvina and starts talking about his decision to leave his job. Edward has always wanted to work in the arts, but convinced himself that being a dreamer would just leave him broke, and without realizing it, he became numb, like a zombie. Melvina just watches him as he talks, and eventually he asks her if the system is designed to deceive people. He says he feels like a cog in the machine, completely disconnected from his own life. But when he looks up, Melvina isn't there. Her chair is empty. He blinks, looks again, and she's back, like nothing happened. She tells him she understands and asks him what happened next. He tells her about his mother, that she left him when he was young, and when she died, he got a call from a notary saying she left him her apartment and a large sum of money. And just like that, he no longer had to worry about survival. He could finally focus on what he actually wanted. The apartment is beautiful, but in the back of the room, there's a wheelchair. The same wheelchair his mother died in. A few days later, while moving in, he meets his neighbor. She recognizes him immediately, says he must be Annie's son. But when she turns to face him, half her face is wrong, sunken, emaciated, like she fights Batman on Friday nights. She tells him she was close with his mother, even offered to take care of her when she got sick, but whatever she had, it took her fast. Harvey Dent's grandmother invites him to come visit sometime, says they can talk more, and then casually mentions she's headed out for her nightly rounds. Later that night, when Edward is asleep, he hears someone scream his name. Edward! He jumps up, turns on the light, and of course, instead of minding his business, he walks towards the sound. Why do y'all always run to the sound? Episode 2. He steps into the hallway, and immediately something feels off. At the end of the hall, his mom's wheelchair is just sitting there, empty. He knows he didn't move it. He looks around, checking to see if anyone else is there, but the place is completely quiet. Nothing else looks out of place, so he just brushes it off. The next morning, he starts setting up the storage room to turn it into an art studio. He's excited. For the first time in a while, it feels like he can actually start over. He wants to create something that represents this new chapter of his life. While organizing his materials, he opens a drawer and finds a journal. It belonged to his mother. He starts flipping through it, and it's filled with writing, not just random thoughts, but full stories, world building, characters, and then he sees his own name. In her writing, he's a character, someone she misses but can't bring herself to be close to because of her own shame. He keeps reading, trying to make sense of it, when something slips out from between the pages, a photo. It's his mother standing next to Margaret. In the journal, there's an entry describing two women living together, close, intimate, a kind of relationship that people around them didn't accept. On the back of the photo, there's a note. When I thought I had felt everything, when nothing seemed new anymore, you came into my life, from Margaret. That night, he hears it again, the voice. This time, it's right outside the door. Edward. He slowly walks towards it, reaching for the handle, and opens the door. At the end of the hallway, there is a body. A woman sitting in the wheelchair, her mouth wide open like she's screaming, but there's no sound. Then she starts moving, rolling towards him, and suddenly, she screams his name. Edward slams the door shut. He just stands there, frozen, trying to process what he just saw, because the more he thinks about it, the more that woman looks like his mother. Episode 3. When Edward opens the door again, the presence is gone. Nobody, no movement, nothing. The next day, he goes to see Margaret. At this point, he's shaken. He's starting to question if he's losing his mind, so he wants answers. He needs to understand what really happened to his mother. Margaret tells him that she and Annie were successful women, that it wasn't easy, and that people didn't take them seriously, especially as women trying to build something for themselves. Then she looks at him and says that he wouldn't understand because he's a man. She tells him that she had a rough childhood. Her father constantly told her she was worthless, so when she finally left home, she made it her mission to prove him wrong. And for a while she did. She starred in 2 films and built something for herself. Then she met a man, someone who said he loved her. But one day that same man threw boiling water in her face, and after that, she never acted again. Margaret pauses and goes back to Annie. She tells Edward that Annie died in a matter of days. Her condition deteriorated so quickly she couldn't take care of herself. Margaret tried to help, but it didn't matter. Her mind was gone. She started doing things that didn't make sense, even nibbling on her own fingers. At night, it got worse. She couldn't sleep. She kept hallucinating and insisting that someone was calling her name over and over again. Edward is disturbed because now he's thinking the same thing. What if this isn't random? What if he has the same illness? What if he inherited it? Later, he goes back to the journal, still trying to make sense of everything. He keeps reading until he starts to drift off, barely staying awake. Then something in the journal catches his attention. His mother wrote that she thinks it all started when the wheelchair appeared in her home. She doesn't know where it came from. She doesn't remember bringing it there. The more she writes, the more confused she sounds. She says she should have never sat in it, that it weakened her, that now it has her and it won't let her up again. And then the door slowly creaks open. Edward freezes. At that moment, he knows exactly what he has to do. He has to get rid of that chair. And as he thinks that, the wheelchair slowly begins to push the door open on its own. Episode 4. The whole situation starts to really scare him. At this point, he knows if he doesn't get away from this thing, he's going to end up just like his mother. So that night, he takes the wheelchair outside and leaves it by the dumpster. He thinks that's it, and it's not. He can't sleep, his mind is racing, he's thinking about everything. If he's developing the same illness, and if he made a mistake leaving his job to chase his ambitions. But the worst part, the chair comes back. He tries to get rid of it again, and again, and again, but every time it ends up right back in the apartment like he never moved it. As the days pass, he's getting more and more exhausted. Just being around it drains him. And whenever he touches it, it's like his energy disappears in seconds until one day he snaps. He grabs an axe and starts tearing into the chair. Swing after swing, destroying it completely. Splinters everywhere, metal bent out of shape. But by the time he's done, it's in pieces. And somehow the axe is covered in blood. He looks up and for a second, he sees his mother sitting in the chair, bloodied. She looks at him and says, "Edward, sit here." He just stares at her, frozen. "Sit on your mother's lap." Her voice gets louder, more aggressive. "Sit here." Edward screams. And just like that, everything resets. The chair is whole again, and the axe is sitting neatly in it. Margaret shows up after hearing him scream. She checks on him, then immediately tells him he needs to see a therapist. But then she starts talking and shifts. She goes on about how men aren't used to suffering, how the advantages they have make them weak, how they can't handle real hardship. And he's just standing there thinking, why are you saying this right now? Because she's completely missing what's actually happening. He tries to ignore her, but then the clock chimes. He turns to look at it. The little door opens. But the cuckoo bird doesn't come out. Instead, something's stuck inside. He reaches in and pulls out a crumpled piece of paper that was blocking the mechanism. He unfolds it, and written in blood are the words, "Marge killed me." Right behind him, Margaret asks, "What does it say?" And Edward, without missing a beat, says, "It's nothing, just the clock's instructions." Episode 5. Edward considers going to the police, but officially his mother's death was ruled as Guillain-Barré syndrome, a disorder that attacks the peripheral nervous system. So from the outside, there's no case for murder. Back in the session, Melvina is quietly taking notes as he talks. He tries to rationalize it, saying his mother lost her mind, that the message she left could have just been another delusion. But even he doesn't sound convinced. He admits there has to be something more going on, and he needs to figure out what it is. Between the chair and everything happening to him, he's even considered leaving, but part of him is scared that if he runs, he'll realize the problem was never the place, it was him. He trails off sighing, clearly overwhelmed. Everything in his life is falling apart, and he hasn't even been able to paint. He thought he was chasing a dream, but now it feels like he was just being naive, like reality finally caught up to him. Melvina looks at him and breaks it down. She says his conclusion is that he's been an idealist, and now he's paying the price for it. That realists are the ones who work, wait for the weekend, count their vacation days, and live within what's safe and expected. Edward pushes back, because if that were true, he never would have left his old life in the first place. Melvina pauses, then tells him he's not really listening to himself. That voice in his head mocking people who chase their dreams is still there, fighting against what he really wants. That internal conflict, that constant back and forth, is what's wearing him down. She tells him that in trying to become realistic, he's spent years pretending to be someone else, and instead of making him stronger, it made him weaker. She says everyone has an inner child that wants to be heard, and if you ignore it long enough, you risk killing it. We pan back to Margaret in a room, speaking to someone, but they aren't there, telling them to eat, her tone sharp, impatient. Melvina continues, her voice overlapping the scene. And when that part of you dies, that's when you begin to lose your humanity. Now we see a woman holding a crying baby. She's frustrated, overwhelmed, saying she has other things to do, that she's not there to serve anyone. She tries to force the baby to drink, but it won't stop crying. The tension builds into something dark. We see broken dolls on a shelf, a caged bird. She starts ranting, saying that when she got pregnant, she was promised it would only be temporary, that she could continue her career, but now she's stuck. While he gets to live the life she worked for, the man cuts in, calling her insane, saying she hurt the baby. They begin arguing. She fires back, accusing him of cheating, of being too busy with other women to care about his own child. He lashes out verbally, and the situation quickly escalates. The energy shifts from argument to something more dangerous. She refuses to back down, saying she won't let anyone control her life, and threatened her own son if he got in the way. And in a sudden, violent moment, he retaliates. The scene cuts hard. We don't stay on it, but the damage is done. Episode 6. We flash back to Margaret's father, gloating over the fact that she got kicked out. He knew time would eventually humble her and give him the satisfaction of watching her come crawling back home. Back in the present, Margaret is sitting in a chair when she suddenly starts throwing up something that looks horribly close to a fetus. It is nasty, but it is also symbolic. Like whatever humanity or innocence she had left is long gone. Edward tells Melvina he's decided he's going to move. At this point, he's thinking if everything started when he came here, maybe it'll all stop once he leaves. But before he goes, he has to know what happened to his mother. He knows Margaret goes out on her little nightly rounds, and he also knows the balconies are connected by a narrow bridge in case of fire. So while he's gone, he decides he's going to sneak into her apartment and look for proof. He makes his way over the balcony and manages to get inside. He opens the door slowly and steps into the apartment with only the flashlight on his phone to guide him. The place already feels wrong, too still, too dark. Even the paintings look like they're watching him as he moves down the hallway. He makes it into a bedroom and sees a chair sitting there. There's also this brown stain on the floor, which, I'm not even gonna lie, looks like it came from that thing Margaret just threw up. Then Edward notices the picture on the wall. Annie and Margaret are in them together, close, intimate, clearly in love. He's standing there like, what the hell is this? One picture is especially unsettling because it's this half and half image of Annie and Margaret, almost like the two of them have been fused together into one person. And while he's trying to process that, there's suddenly a shadow behind him. Then Margaret screams. Knife in hand, she rushes him and drives it straight into his back. Edward barely manages to hold her off while she completely unravels. She starts yelling that she had finally stopped feeling lonely. She had finally found someone who loved her, and he took her away from her. While she's struggling to keep her from stabbing him again, Margaret keeps spiraling. She says after her father died, she swore no man would ever control her life again. But then Edward, this spoiled child, took the one person she loved most. She screams that of course she noticed the note Annie left behind, calling him a stupid boy and a lousy liar. And she just keeps trying to kill him. Episode 7. Edward finally manages to fling her crazy ass off him. She hits the floor hard, and for a second, he doesn't even process it. He just grabs his phone with the screen cracked and runs. Thank God, cause bro. He sprints down the hallway, barely thinking, just trying to get out. As he passes the living room, we see 3 crows sitting there, still watching, kinda similar to the first episode. He reaches the balcony door and throws it open. It's pouring outside, and when he looks over to his balcony, he freezes. The wheelchair is there, not on the floor, it's on the wall, rolling slowly in the air, positioned perfectly, like it's waiting for him. Like if he tries to cross over, he'd have no choice but to sit in it. A crow caws loudly, and that snaps him out of it. He turns and runs back into Margaret's apartment, taking his chances inside. The crows start to go off behind him as he moves, their calls echoing throughout the space while he stumbles through the hallway trying to find another way out. He spots the front door, runs to it, grabs the handle, but it's locked, and panic sets in hard. He's losing blood now, and everything is starting to blur. His vision fades in and out as he stumbles backward and crashes into the dresser, and that's when it hits him. This is bad. He's losing way too much blood, and if he blacks out now, it's over. Episode 8. Edward is slumped against the door, barely holding himself up as Margaret slowly walks towards him from the darkness. She starts talking, saying the worst part of getting older isn't the pain, it's being forgotten, being pushed to the side like nobody wants you anymore. But then she met Annie, and for the first time she wasn't alone. They had different paths, but the same pain, the same anger towards the world, and somehow they understood each other completely. She thought that connection would last until Annie got sick. Lightning flashes briefly illuminating Margaret as she steps closer, knife in hand, Nosferatu style. She says when Annie started losing her strength, losing her voice, she thought about Edward again, about leaving. And in that moment, Margaret realized something. Annie didn't love her anymore. She was going to leave her behind, so she locked her in the apartment. She says Annie tried to leave messages, but she got rid of all of them, all except one. And now it doesn't matter because Margaret has nothing left to lose. But Edward does. She screams that it's over and lunges at him with the knife. For a split second, Edward sees his easel in his mind. And something clicks. He screams and pushes her with everything he has left. She goes flying back and lands directly in the chair. The crows appear again, watching. Margaret freezes. Her energy drains instantly. Edward looks at her and finally speaks. Says everyone has a chair that follows them their whole life, waiting for the moment you give up. Maybe it's sickness. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's the moment you decide you're not good enough. He says he almost sat in his when everything felt pointless, when he thought chasing his dreams was stupid, but then he realized something. Reality isn't fixed. It's something you build, something you choose, and if you keep choosing it, eventually it becomes real. Paintception. Episode 9. Melvina stands at her desk. We hear Edward's question again. Don't you think the system is built to deceive us? We flash back, Edward repeating how it pulls people away from their dreams, turns them into parts of a machine. The sounds around him start to blur, like he's drifting, and Melvina walks over with a syringe. She draws his blood and stares at it for a moment, a little too long, and then suddenly she snaps. Fuck! She throws everything off the table, frustrated, and then we see it. The chair. She looks at it and says, "No. You're wrong again. My hour hasn't come yet." So yeah, this story is really about what happens when you give up on yourself, because Edward almost did. He spent years believing what people told him, that chasing his dreams was unrealistic, that he should just settle. And that mindset, that's the chair. Margaret is what happens when you lose that fight completely. Everything she went through, her father, her mother, the world around her, it broke her down until there was nothing left but anger. She didn't just lose her dreams, she lost herself. The chair isn't just a chair. It's that moment where you stop trying, where you convince yourself it's over. And the scary part is, everyone has one. This was a really good arc. I enjoyed this patient, and I'm actually happy he survived this. He learned his lesson and he moved on. And Melvina's discredit, I don't think it satisfied her. I think she kind of hoped he failed, but it taught us a good lesson. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and please continue to show love. It's been so great just seeing everyone's likes and comments, and it really motivates me to do more. I appreciate you guys so much. Asia out, and have a good one.